Hey everybody, one of the cool little questions we get hit with from time to time is, where do you guys make your albums? Where do you guys make your CDs? How do you get the music on the internet? Do you go to recording studios? What do you do? How do you go about this? And I thought it'd be kind of fun just to show everybody what we do. Years ago, I built a little small recording studio. When I say small, I mean like, thrown in an alcove, in the corner of a room type small recording studio. And I named it Spivey Point Studios after one of my heroes, which is John Carpenter. And that was the name of the town he did in the movie The Fog, so I named it after that. And literally when I started out, it was a 4-track cassette unit, and then it went to a 4-track digital unit. And then finally I moved up to computers. And that's what I still use now, because really everybody records on computers. It's the only way to fly. I mean, let's face reality. It's 2019. It's just the way it goes. So I'm going to show you what we use and how we use it, and how basically this stuff is completely out of date by every stretch of the imagination. The computer's over a decade old. Everything we're using is fairly, I don't think you can buy any of it anymore, but it's what we use to make a record. Now, before I go any further, I just want to say, when you make a CD with your band, you have to look at the reality of the moment. What kind of a band are you? Are you a band where you can go in there and just lay in a performance like a drum track, and then a bass player, and then a guitar player, and then another guitar player, and then the vocals? Or do you have to actually go through the aggravation of recording everybody in a semi-live environment? Are you kind of a jazz ensemble or something like that, where you need to do that? Or are you just like a little grunge rock band that you can get by with going in and, doing it on a very, very small setup, where you don't need 10 microphones all wired in at once, and you don't need a whole lot of gear to pull this off? For us in Crimson Tips, the studio reflects what we are. We're a 3-piece power trio grunge band. So for something like that, you do not need an immense setup. The way we always record our albums is we set up a click track, basically, a simple drum beat, and we will write our songs to the drum beat in the computer. Gives you great timing when you're always playing to a machine. You're never going to waver. But anyway, we go in, we lay down our tracks. Usually Kyle will lay down his guitar track. I'll lay down my guitar track. Whoever's song it is that we're playing bass, usually whoever wrote the song tends to play bass with that song. So if it's one of my songs, I play bass on it. If it's one of Kyle's songs, he plays bass on his. And then we go through the final, vocals, and then I'll throw a bunch of guitar solos on a bunch of crap. And in the end, what we do is we take it over to John and in our rehearsal space, and we record his drums. And I'll get to how we do that in a moment. But first I want to go through some of the stuff that we actually use and that you see sitting here on this desk behind me, all again, outdated. You could probably rebuy everything on here for like $150 off of eBay or something like that. I mean, this is really out of date, but here we go. We're going to have some fun. The computer I'm using is a old compact Presario SL115CL, and it originally came, and I kid you not, with like 120. It still has 120 gigs hard drive in it. That's all it's got, and it only came with like 512 megs of RAM, but I've since boosted it up to 2 gigs of RAM, and it's got an old AMD Athlon processor in it, but it's still chugging along. I've had it forever, and it still runs, and she still hasn't failed on me yet, so I haven't gotten rid of her, although we are in the process of making a new CD, and this is probably the last one that computer will be used for. Everything will stay the same, except I will change that computer to a new, more improved tower. And other than that, it's going to stay what you see behind us. You know what I mean? I might have to change the audio input, just because I don't even know if they have the drivers to take this thing. This computer is an old XP computer. That's how far back this thing goes. Anyway, I've been rambling. I've been shooting all over the place. Let's kind of get down to brass taxes. After the computer, we have software. And the software we use is literally the original version of Guitar Tracks Pro. The original version of Guitar Tracks Pro. I think it was like 2004, 2007, early 2000s Guitar Tracks Pro. I'll probably pop it up on the screen for you so you can see what year this thing actually creeped up in. But that's what we're using. It gives us 32 tracks that we can use. Yes, you can bounce a whole bunch of things to a track, but if you want to break them all apart in the stereo spectrum, we have 32 to work with. Now, In today's modern day, when everybody has 5,000 tracks that they can record to and go just completely apeshit crazy, somebody will say 32 tracks, are you kidding me? But let me tell you something. If you look back at what the Beatles and the Stones and all those, Zeppelin did on 8 tracks or whatever, it's amazing. They would have slit their wrists just for the junk you see behind me right here. So never take for granted what you have if you have 32 tracks to use. If a 3-piece power trio can't get it done in 32 tracks, there's something wrong. I'm just saying now. You're kind of going a little bit crazy. But we have the old Guitar Tracks Pro running in here. And of course, you can see on the screen, that is like your edit view. You have your, let's see here, your old mix view, so that it gives you the feel like you're using an old mixing board. And by the way, you can go out there and get more higher tech software today. I mean, I think Cakewalk is just giving away like Sonar or whatever the hell the last thing they made was. And you can download it for free. It's incredibly powerful. We actually are just waiting until we get a new computer to do all that kind of stuff. So we will be going to those ages. Whenever you make a record, you're going to need monitors. And I just bought these small Alesis 3.5s. I'll put the name of them up here on the screen because I can't remember them off the top of my head, but you'll be able to see what they are. And we use those for mixing, and they work great. They're not going to shatter your room apart, but they do a good enough job to get the idea done. I also use, believe it or not, a pair of Jensen bookshelf speakers because, let's face it, you want to hear what it sounds like to me. Some people have a boombox in their room or something like that. I have an old pair of Jensen bookshelf speakers that after I go through the clarity and the flat response of these Alesis, I'll pump it to the bookshelf speakers just to see and to hear what it's going to sound like on a small home stereo. You know what I mean? I power those because obviously they're not powered with a little unit that I'll put a picture of up on the screen so you can see it. It's just a little LaPi, let's see, how many watts? It's just a 20-watt amplifier that you can get for, I think, $20 off of Amazon any day of the week. The thing is, like, they give them away. Works great, never has failed me. I mean, the thing's reliable. It's powered these things for years. So it does a great job, and it costs us basically no money. So you're looking at, I don't know, maybe $50, $60 bookshelf speakers that they don't even make anymore, and a $20 amplifier to power it. I don't even know if, I'm positive they still make them, or a version of, so that's good. The software is ancient, and you can't find anything like it anymore, but you can find stuff 10 times more powerful for free. Just throwing it out there. Over here, down here, to actually get the audio in, I have an old M Audio mobile-free USB, and it runs into the computer through a USB cable, obviously. And it can take 2 channels at one time, meaning you can run in 2 instruments at one time if that's what you're doing. Or you can take one instrument and split it and have like a clean version of the sound and a dirty version of the sound, whatever you want to do. But that's all that we use. I mean, that we layer instruments in one at a time, one at a time, one at a time. So we're just using this very simple thing, which I think was like $99 a decade and change ago. So literally you can get more powerful stuff with more channels and, 24-bit this, whatever, for dirt. But that's what we still use. We've been using it for years. It still sounds fine. There's nothing, wrong with it. We love it. And as another thing, we record all of our CDs in 16-bit, 16 by 44.1K. Some people go with the 24, for that higher end audio or something like that. I've never seen a need for it. It just takes up computer processing power. And 16-bit is what a CD is anyway. And I hate to break it to you, most people today are listening to their crap in waveform, you know what I mean? So where the audio is diminished and everything. So 16-bit to me is fine. I've never had a situation where I said, man, I wish I was recording in 24. 16 is always done as well. To gather our guitar tones and our guitar sounds, what I used for the first 3 albums we did, and even half of the 4th, believe it or not, we would never mic up an amp. It just takes too much time to get a good sound. You got cars, might be going by where you have, your setup, and a police siren will screw everything up, or a dog barking might throw you or anything. So what we've done is always recorded direct. And for years and years and years, we used this old, ancient Behringer bass V amp floating around. And all our bass tones always came from that. And all of our, because they actually have guitar sounds in this too. They have effects for guitars and keyboards, and it's mostly bass, but I think there's like 7 or 8 guitar amps to choose from, everything. And we did everything just through that, right into the computer, right into the mobile mobile pre-USB, whatever the hell you want to call it, straight into guitar tracks. And everything that we've ever recorded is in that. We've had, songs pop up on the radio, thank God, which was great that we got played on local radio once or twice. And this sounded great, I'm sorry, you know what I mean? So, yeah, it was just a stupid little unit. Nowadays, we've been using our, believe it or not, our floor pedals. Kyle, for his bass, uses a Zoom B3, and I use a Zoom G3X. And those things have all kinds of stuff built into them, and amp simulators and all that kind of stuff. And it sounds so good. I mean, it sounds amazing. So that there's no point in really using the old Behringer V amp anymore. It kind of floats around. I mean, maybe if I could sell it for like $30 on eBay, but it's like an old classic thing that we love, so we'll keep her floating around. So, our pedals, which, are floating all over the place at rehearsal and all that kind of stuff, is what we actually use to record all of our guitar tracks. Okay, I'm going to go into really briefly what we do when we record a CD. I have a very simple method. I love the sound of CDs from the early 70s, later 70s, stuff like that. All the old Kiss albums, the early ones, like up to like Love Gun and things like that, and Rock and Roll Over. And I always want the band to sound like you would hear the band in front of you. So literally what I do when I'm mixing, it's very simple. I've done every album this way. I put the one guitar player, because we double our guitar tracks, you know what I mean? Even though we play as a 3-piece live on albums, there's always 2 guitars, bass, drum. And what we do is I put a bass, or I put one guitar at 10 o'clock, one guitar at 2 o'clock, because that's what you would see if you were standing in front of a live band. You'd have one guy here and one guy there. Put the drums in the middle. I put the bass at about somewhere, maybe 1 o'clock. I put the vocals at like 11 o'clock, and the drums right in the middle, because then you feel like you're in front of a live band, just with clarity and better audio and all this other kind of crap. Because to me, I always hated when people would try to make their live shows sound like the album. I'm like, no bullshit, man. Make the album sound like the live show, but just make it sound like a really good version of it, and you can process it, affect it, and do whatever the hell you want. But I'm just saying that to me, it was my mentality was, let's do every album like somebody's at the show and they're getting hit right in the face by what the band is doing. So guitar, drums, bass, vocals, every album. And we still do that to this day, So anyway, that's the way we do it. And now you might wonder, how can a setup like this possibly record drums? Right? I am a lover of the sound of drums in the 70s, maybe early 80s. After that, I think they got kind of crazy because, they're overdoing the snare drums on a lot of albums. They're processing the shit out of them, especially in the 80s. Every time somebody hit a snare drum, it sounded like a 12-gauge shotgun going off with effects on it and the reverb. I want a drum set. Did I say drum shit? Yeah, possibly. Whatever. I want the drum kit to sound like a drum kit. And to me, doing that, the simplest thing I did was I said, I'm going to mic with one mic. I'm just going to mic the drum kit with one mic in proper placement. So we go in front of the drum kit, a little bit to the right if you're facing it, so you can get a little bit more of the snare. And maybe about 3.5 feet up, I point down at a down angle, one condenser mic, capture the band. You gotta capture the drum track, pardon me. Woo. So literally that's how we do it. It's laying down the instruments, vocals, and solos to a click, bringing it to John, one condenser microphone properly placed in front of the drum kit, and there you go. Now, here's one last thing I want to give a hint for us. This is the way we do it, which might be archaic and crazy to you. One of the things that we always do is, if there's something wrong with the sound of it, like I say, oh man, I wish the kick drum was a little higher. If you've got one track to work with, you really don't have a lot of leeway. You know what I mean? You're kind of stuck with the drum sounds you have. But there's times you might be like, oh, I just wish it would have been a little bit more like that. There's ways you can do that recording digitally, obviously. You know what I mean? There's things that you can do to jazz that up. And one of the things that I've done in 2 different ways is that I could take one hit of his kick drum and then just lay it in over every other kick, so it just gives it more oomph, because now it's, the 2 of them together perfectly synced. It sounds like one. But when you do that, the only thing is that, not every kick is the same. If it's a human playing the thing, every kick isn't going to be uniformly perfect. And I don't like to go in there. I like to record a band digitally as though we were recording to tape. You play your take, you play it all the way through. You play your next take, you play it all the way through. The drums, you play them all the way through. And then if we have to go in and maybe take out a scratch from a guitar finger on a string or something, or, there was one hit where a stick hit the rim and you're like, oh man, then, you'll do a little cut and swap and you can fix it out. The stuff that they've been doing since the dawn of times with punch-ins and punch-outs, we'll just take part from later in the song that matches it and just drop it in there. But 99% of everything you ever hear on one of our CDs is literally the band playing all the way through, individually. But back to the part about the drum tracks. If I want to hear an extra bit on the snare or an extra bit on the drum, the kick or whatever, I can actually take the track, copy it, and double it below it, and then just erase out really quick everything but the sound of that one hit. Everything but the sound of, I'll just erase everything, and I still have the kick drum, and it's going to match the kick drum above it perfectly. That 12th time you hit the kick drum, if it's a little bit light, it's going to sound like that on the other one, because it's the same track doubled, just with all the other drums mixed out, and I can level them out to give that song a little bit more boomph, or do it on a snare, or do it whatever. So that's a little trick that we use if we want to change the way the drums sound after the fact. So anyway, I guess what I'm trying to tell you guys is that all you need to record a CD is the most bare basic bones of a setup and the know-how how to use it. One of the reasons I haven't changed this ancient software that I have is that I can wing through this thing super fast and throw a song together in no time and have everything laid out and everything done. And I'm like, bam! Okay, we're recording an album. I know it like the back of my hand. So I've always kind of been reluctant to go to something new because I'm so comfortable with the old, But it works. And I've never had anybody come to me and say, oh, I don't think that was 16-bit or 24-bit or whatever. It works. So go out there, get a computer used if you need one. Get an audio interface for chump change. Oh, and we also have headphones. We have I know I have an old Sony pair floating around, and what the hell was the other one? An AKG pair, floating around. But I never mix the headphones. That's just for recording, you know what I mean, and hearing stuff there. I don't mix through headphones. I'm not one of those people that mixes through headphones. Actually, I shouldn't say that. At the very end, I go through just to make sure that there's nothing weird going on. And my hearing is shot. I wear hearing aids and everything like that. So I give it to Kyle, and I say, listen to this from beginning to end. Make sure you don't hear a pop, fart, scratch, scriggle, something that's going to jump out, and just listen to it and let me know. And sometimes he's taking notes and say, hey, man, I hear a little bit of a weird clip or something at 2.5 minutes into blah blah song. You better go look, and I'll go look, and I'll be like, okay, track 8 had a clip. Let me fix this here. But that's basically it. I've rambled enough. This has gone on far too long. Okay, everybody, this is just a quick video, or not, showing that you don't have to blow a lot of money, depending if you're the right kind of band, and you can make a CD on the cheap. Relatively. Oh yeah. By the way, vocals, we use an Sterling Audio condenser mic. I got to look up the exact model. I'll put it on the screen right here. And that thing's always worked fine. It's always been great. A couple CDs we even actually used the dynamic mics on just for giggles, but the first one and this one that we're working on now, we're using condenser mics again. Just why not? What the hell? But again, simple setup, simple stuff. It doesn't cost any. I mean, this whole pile of shit, if you put it together, is like a few $100. I don't even know if I could sell it at this point because it's old. But it works for us, and we make our music. And making your music any way that you can find a way to make your music and record it and give it to family and friends or put it on the internet is a godsend and a blessing. Because I remember back in my day when I was a kid growing up, you couldn't even make a fucking demo without spending a whole shitload of money just to go make a demo. So to have this kind of capability and this kind of stuff that you can get anywhere for next to nothing. But this is how we do it still to this day in 2019 with our 15, 14-year-old, whatever the hell it is setup that we got going behind us. And there you go. Anyway, peace, love, happiness. Everybody make music, do your thing. Rock and roll, hit the stage if you get a chance. Take care.